Well, hello here, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your host again, Charles Nash. Let me get Just a Gigolo here by David Lee Roth. Let me go ahead and get it shut off here. I want to let everybody know, folks, it looks like I won my YouTube counter suspension. I just found out today, I had heard back from them that they have removed my second strike against me because of, well, according to them, they did some overreach that they shouldn't have done. I've actually got the email from it. I'm kind of laughing about it because, I had talked about this here the other day on my podcast here last week, and it's funny because this fight by the big tech on, censorship, it's really funny, folks, because what happened is, before I get anything in the news, I just had to get this out this morning. I had done a little test on YouTube because they had been removing my content as soon as I uploaded it, because people like to watch me here on video. They don't always want to just listen to me on iHeartRadio or Spotify or Pocket Casts or Google Podcasts. Some people like to actually see where I'm broadcasting from in my home. I have family, friends all over different states, people that tune in and hear me and hear my voice. They want to be able to see me, and I get it. So I've got my own little Ditto cam. Rush Limbaugh was a big person on that. There was a lot of people that wanted to see what he did as he was on the golden mic. Now, we are on the dark night mic here. And I've got a lot of people that's commented over the dark night, mic here. But getting back to what I was saying, so YouTube had struck me down here about 2 weeks ago and said that they were suspending me for 90 days because I had broke a community rule that I had spoken about things about COVID-19 in a podcast that I did here 2 weeks ago, when in fact 2 weeks ago the episode that I uploaded had nothing to do with climate change, had nothing to do with COVID-19. So I had titled it with having to do with COVID-19, even though the video had nothing to do with COVID-19, because I wanted to prove one thing to YouTube. And I wanted to be able to show this and tell my audience this. The video had nothing to do with COVID. I never mentioned it once. But I uploaded it with a COVID title. And they took it off. I titled it, Doses to Doors Fight, the COVID-19 Vaccination. It wasn't even up for 5 minutes, folks, and YouTube removed it on premises that I was spreading false information about COVID-19. When the video, if they would have watched it, remember how all these big techs say they have these specialists that know more than me and you and the actual people in the scientific field. They've got specialists that work for them, that they know exactly what's misinformation. So I got them. I put nothing in the video, but just titled it a COVID-19 title. And they fell for the bait. They removed my video within 5 minutes of it posting. So they send you a message then on YouTube that says you're in violation of such and such policy. Mine was the COVID-19 community policy guideline. And if there's other people that's on YouTube, please look up these ridiculous rules and guidelines that YouTube has. Because I'm going to keep fighting with them. And even if today, if they turn around and suspend my video today, it's just going to prove my point. But the point is, they suspended the video. It had nothing to do with COVID. They didn't even watch it, folks. They didn't even watch the podcast to see what was in it. They just automatically assumed that it was about COVID-19, not even knowing what was in it. I could have said the Democrats are doing a great job and shoving masks down everyone's faces and Biden's the best president in the world. And they still would have suspended it because no one in that company takes the time to look at everything like they claim they do. So here the other day, matter of fact, this morning, I was going through and just making sure that other videos of mine were still there. Because I've had a lot of views, especially over the one with the lie on climate change that I posted here last week. I got a lot of people that sent me, comments and had questions, and I wanted to make sure that it hadn't been pulled, and it was still there. And then I noticed that they had sent me a letter, basically stating that they had removed the strike, and I was able to start posting videos again on my YouTube channel for political theater. So, it just goes to show you, folks, that this war on free speech by big tech is very, very real. 100% real. I've got proof of it. I mean, it's kind of like when you listen to Glenn Beck or Buck Sexton or any of those people that are on the radio, have their own channels, but they do upload things to their other channels like YouTube or Twitter, and they're constantly having to fight these big tech companies not to have their voices censored or their material censored. I have the same thing. I'm not as big as them. I'm nowhere close to them, but I'm this little man on the totem pole, and I still am fighting the whole thing with censorship. And I do the same thing every time I do a podcast. I tell everyone where you can get the information. I'm reading the news. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm reading the headlines from the news. And if you're going to pull my content, YouTube, or anyone else at that matter, I'm not in violation of anything. You people just don't do your jobs. You claim that you're the big tech censorship trying to take out misinformation. Well, how can it be misinformation if I'm getting it from you? I'm taking your own news. I'm taking the sources that you people put out every day, and I'm reading it to my audience. Of course, I make subjective opinions of my own about it. But in no way is that misinformation. That's me taking the garbage that you spew to the public every day, and I'm just showing how ridiculous you people sound and look. So I just wanted to start out my podcast today. I'm actually pretty happy about this because it just I've got the letters. I'll say this again. I've said this for several weeks. I've got the documents. I've got the proof. Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, if you can hear me, if someone can get you my information, I would really like to jump on board with your lawsuit against the big techs. I mean, I've got plenty of evidence to show improper censorship of my freedom and my right and what they're censoring on me. I mean, the letter that I got here the other day from YouTube just proves it. I mean, it just proves it. But I'd like to jump on that, mass lawsuit that he's got going on. That mass class action lawsuit. I'd love to get on top of that. But I wanted to share that with everybody today. We've got quite a bit of information that I wanted to talk about today. And it's a great day. It's a great Wednesday here in August. So the first one that I want to go over here, this happened here yesterday, was the 19 senators, GOP senators, that jumped ship on the Senate floor for the vote for the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. A lot of people, not just Republicans, there are a lot of people that are mad about what transpired, and rightfully so. There was a lot of things in that bill as far as it being called bipartisan that wasn't bipartisan. And as soon as that bill was passed yesterday, folks, it was to no surprise, Chuck E. Schumer came out. And what did the Democrats say? Well, this $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill isn't good enough. It just doesn't fund what we need for this country. So now you have the Democrats saying as soon as they pass that, we need to pass another bill for infrastructure for $3.5 trillion more. Well, you now have an issue going on within the own Democratic ranks. Michonne says there's a serious concern about the Dems' $3.5 trillion spending plan. Signals trouble for the Biden agenda. So I want to read this here. Senator Joe Manchin on Wednesday morning said he has serious concerns about his party's massive $3.5 trillion spending plan, signaling that he may intend to block much of the package supported by President Biden over inflation and debt concerns. This is what he said. He said, early this morning, I voted yes on the procedural vote to move forward on the budget reconciliation progress because I believe it is important to discuss the fiscal policy future of this country. Michonne, Democrat from Virginia, said that in his statement, however, I have serious concerns about the grave consequences facing the West Virginians and every American family if Congress decides to spend another $3.5 trillion. Says Michonne is not the first modern Democrat to express qualms about the mass spending plan, and he has begun to campaign by Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders of Vermont in the last month. He said, while I will support beginning the process of budget reconciliation, I do not support a bill that costs $3.5 trillion. My only comment to him, this was on Fox News, it was also on the Washington Post. The only question I have for Senator Joe Manchin is, you have a concern about this reckless spending, but yet you just voted for the $1 trillion infrastructure plan that had reckless spending in it as well. And a majority of it had nothing to do, folks, with an infrastructure bill. Like, I seriously want to tell people, I don't know what childcare has to do with an infrastructure bill. It's in there. That's what was passed. More money for childcare. I mean, honestly, that has nothing to do with infrastructure. Infrastructure has to do with roads, bridges, waterways, airports, foundational construction on federal and state buildings, breaking ground on, organizations within the state and federal that it's needed to support the public, or areas in the sectors of federal and state that are overwhelmed and need more manpower to keep them functioning. That's what an infrastructure bill is. Or how about power grids? I'm not talking the Green New Deal, where you've got people basically how would you say this? Sending money to these private companies to make everything, excuse me, wind turbine or wind powered. That's not. Look at California. We have rolling blackouts out there. That's not going to do anything. I'm talking about the energy departments that we have. Water and sanitation. Those are things that's part of an infrastructure bill, not childcare. Not these things about cow emissions or Green New Deal. That's not an infrastructure plan, folks. That is the liberals' wish list. And there's even more of that stacked into this $3.5 trillion bill that the Democratic Party, the far left, is wanting to pass. It's stacked full of nonsense and garbage. I said to my wife here the other day, we were taking the kids up to Lake Erie here in Ohio. We're going to go to a beach. It was up on Nickel Plate Beach up on Lake Erie. A wonderful beach. If you've never been there, I absolutely recommend it. But I said to her, I heard this on the radio, and I said, I absolutely weep, not only for my children's future, I weep for the next 4 or 5 generations of children in this country. Because what is happening is the Democratic Party is stealing your children's future, folks. And I know what people is going to say, well, Mr. Nash, what does that mean? Well, that means, folks, that they're spending this country so far in debt, on the national debt, there's no way to go back and fix it. You know, you've heard of people coming out saying, well, if we do a penny or a nickel plan and everybody contributes to that, you know, every year we can get the deficit down and we can get on a... But, folks, there's no budget. There's no budget going back for what they're spending. If you look at inflation levels right now, this is worse than it was with Jimmy Carter. It is. Prices are just going to keep rising and rising and rising. I hate to see what the holiday season is going to look like. Gas prices are up. You know, all of last year and under President Donald Trump, I never seen one time gas prices up over $2.90 here in Ohio. It's $3.20 a gallon right now. It has not went under $3 for months. It's just going up. If you look at car lots, the dealerships can't even get cars in because of shortages. They're having to space out vehicles, new and used, to make their parking lots look like they're full, but they're not. I talked to people that work the railroad with shipping cars. It's down. There is nothing to ship. Holding lots are empty. I've talked to truck drivers who have said that they've lost a lot of business because there's nothing to ship. The job report that came out here for the month of July, I reported on it last week. You've got a lot of analysts saying that it was down. And then, of course, you've got others saying, no, it was up. It was up. More jobs were created. Who's right and who's wrong? Two different stories that I keep hearing about that. I want to talk about the job market, actually, while we're on this topic. Because I'm going to be honest with everybody, folks. This whole thing about there's jobs everywhere out there, people can't find anybody to work, nobody wants to work because they're on unemployment. I'm going to tell you something right now. I have been out there looking for a job. I wanted to see what it was like. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't disagree that there are jobs out there that need to be filled. But you're hearing a lot of false lies out there as well. Because I have been through up teen here in the last 4 weeks. Jobs where I've applied and went into just to see what there was. Think about changing employment. And I'm going to tell you something. I've uncovered some things that's kind of disturbing. Everyone keeps saying, well, there's jobs everywhere. I don't see it. And the jobs that are out there that they're trying to fill, a normal family person couldn't work them. Like, I've got 3 kids. I went into a company, actually 2 companies here in Marion. I'm not going to say who they are. You know what they told me? On the interview process over the phone, it was, oh yeah, we have first shift available. They're 8-hour shifts, maybe 10 hours for, 2 hours of overtime here and there. Not an issue. You go in to the actual walkthrough where they talk about giving you your job and presenting you employment. It's a completely different story. It's second and third shift. It's not a first shift. You get lied to over the phone. And then here's the kicker that I'm finding out with a lot of companies right now, especially factory work. They claim that they have nobody to work a job. Nobody wants to work, and they need people. Well, how do you expect to fill positions, folks, when you have companies that's saying you have to work a 14-hour shift with overtime? 14 hours, folks. Wow, I have some people that's going to say, well, Mr. Nash, that's work. Okay, I get that. Does anyone realize that there are labor laws in Ohio? There are laws that said you can only work for so many hours, whether overtime or not. I'm not kidding, folks. 14 hours. I had one company here in Marion that said 14 hours. You go home for 6 hours and then have to come back. You may get your weekends off. No guarantee. Again, I'm not going to say who the company is. If I have people in the state of Ohio, that's listen to my podcast. All I can say is out there for people that do these labor laws, you might want to start looking into some of these companies, because that's why people aren't taking the jobs that are needed out there, especially in factory work. If you have a family, you can't work it. You never see your kids, folks. You never have a life. And I get people saying, well, push to come. If you need an income, I get that. But in the same aspect, is it worth your health? Is it worth you not seeing your children? I would rather go push a cart at Walmart, making $15 or $16 an hour, working an 8 or a 10-hour shift with them, than go work in a factory that says I got to work 14 hours. You may get to go home for 4 to 6 hours for sleep, and then you got to come back in. And then if someone calls off for the next shift, you may have to stay and work their shift as well. Folks, there are labor laws against things like that. And you wonder why. I've been hearing this and hearing this and hearing this for months and months. Well, there's work out there. We just can't find anybody to fill the work. I can see why. I was blaming the youth. This new generation's out there for being lazy. I don't say that that's not true, but with what I'm seeing with some of these companies, and it's just not here in Marion where I live. I've traveled into the Columbus area and things as well. And you would be surprised with what I'm hearing from companies. And some of this is outrageous. So again, anyone listening out there that has anything to do with labor law, especially in the state of Ohio, you better start looking at these companies. I'm not trying to throw anything negative on companies, but you want workers, you got to be able to give your workforce a balanced work life. You can't have slave labor, folks. If that is the case, then we are on the road to becoming communist China. Just putting that out there. I did my own undercover work, and it's really, it really opened my eyes to some things. I could not believe what I was hearing. And I know people is going to say, well, what proof do you have? I've got proof. I've got audio. I've got video of some of these companies. I've even got documentation that some of these companies have given me for their work shifts. And that's something that is a serious issue. We have safety nets for the workforce so that you're not being a slave to your job. You have to have an equal work life. Especially for people that's out there that's got families and children, and small children at that. It's just common sense. If you want workers, these companies, I hope you're listening, if you want workers, make these shifts available to have a balanced work life. Maybe you would have more people come in. Maybe you would have a drop in turnaround. It's just my 2 cents. Getting back to some things in the news, I thought this one was another good one. You had California Governor Newsom this morning flipping out on some reporters as his recall heats up. He was quoted on saying, "Quit your bitching." Pardon my language here. I'm just quoting Governor Newsom. His quote was, "Everybody outside of this state is bitching about this state." Well, I mean, he's not correct. If no one has followed up on this, Governor Newsom is facing a closer anticipated recall election. The spokesman who, the Sacramento, in an interview here, basically interviewed Newsom. He got pretty angry. Basically, he stated it would be nice if our homegrown team would be focusing on what's right. And then the enabled governor responded that everybody outside the state, like I said, is bitching about California. He did apologize, during the speech, but basically you could tell that Newsom is quite frustrated with this recall. Nancy Pelosi even got involved in this as well. She's come out and said that the recall effort against Governor Newsom is alarming, that California needs him. Well, I hate to tell everybody this, but Governor Newsom, you reap what you sow. If anyone's ever heard that old saying. Basically, the lockdowns that he continuously has kept on the state of California has cost jobs, companies, and the public there so badly that you have his own supporters that have now turned against him. Especially when you have a man that puts down lockdown procedures and not even an hour after issuing them goes out and does the opposite of his own mandates. That's a dictatorship, folks. What would you expect any different? There's nothing else that you would expect different. So no, it's not surprising again. Speaking of tensions in states, did everybody see this? It's been all over the news about the what's being quoted as the return of segregation in schools. It says a black mother files complaint after a black principal separates students by race. It says a Virginia teacher resigns at school board meeting, denounces highly publicized and politicized agendas in the school system. Is this any big surprise again, folks? there's a lot of people out there that's following the whole CRT fight. What did I say was going to happen? I said as soon as mothers start getting involved, this fight was going to change over CRT and this racial hate that's being taught in the school systems across the states. And that's what's happening. People are getting identified. Most of them are on school boards. And parents are going in and they're fighting it. I give them kudos. I mean, like I said, you start from the ground up and you work your way up to change these things. Moving out to Chicago, you got the headlines out there about the mayor out there, Mayor Lightfoot, and her utter failure. This was after another police officer was gunned down in Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot not doing anything about it. Matter of fact, she's letting the criminals run rampant out there. Reading this news article here from the Chicago. It says, Chicago alderman says CPD has lost 1,000 cops in just few years. City does not support them. It says a Chicago police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty over this weekend. Says the alderman says that the city does not give police officers enough support. Following the fatal shooting over the weekend in Chicago of Ella French. Says it's an utter failure in the judicial system. Democratic 9th Ward Alderman Matt O'Shara said. I'm sorry if I got the name a little bit tattered there. Noting that the issue is complicated. We see thousands of criminals released. When I talk to the police officers on the street, I hear reportedly they feel that leadership in the city, people in the city, do not support them. O'Shea added that a number of police officers in the city has fallen by 1,000 compared to a couple years ago. City retirements and diminished numbers of people going to the police academy have started this problem. Says the Chicago police told this was to Fox News over the weekend. It did not have data on how many sworn officers there are today compared to the previous years, directing the outlet to the Freedom of Information Department for more information. Folks, this is going to continue. Again, blue states are not going to support cops. It's just the way it's going to be. We've been seeing this for over a year with the Black Lives Matter movement. Antifa. You name it. This is why you see a lot of congressmen on the left side, congressmen and women, I should say, hiring personal security. They'll denounce the police departments in their cities, but when they need security, where are they at? They're hiring their own. The hell with you and me and the average person on the street, especially people that's getting mugged in broad daylight now. And the videos are coming out of this daily. They don't care. They can hire their own security. That's what they get paid the big bucks for, remember? Again, come election time, folks, these are things that you need to look at. Again, I keep saying this. Stop looking at the individual. Start looking at their policies and how they implement the policies. That should be your number one thing to look at. Not Republicans or Democrats or independents or your political spectrum. The heck with all that. Look at the laws and what they're representing and what they're following or not following. That's what you should be voting on this year and next. Then you got the going on live right now. I'm watching the White House press secretary Jen Psaki. She's holding a briefing as the far left Dems continue to try to push this massive spending bill. down everyone's throat. I'm telling you, folks, I do. I weep for this country's future. I really do, especially with our youth. I really do. Speaking of the Biden administration, you've got the Taliban. They've expected to seize Afghanistan's capital in 2 weeks as Biden continues to draw American troops out of Afghanistan region. I'm really not going to weigh on much on this, folks. I'm not. This may be a shock to everybody. I'm really not going to blame the Biden administration for this. I'm not going to blame President Trump, Bush, the Clintons, anybody. I'm a military veteran. I get it. I've heard both sides of this argument. I'm just going to make one statement here, and that's it. It is sad, but we cannot continue to police the world, ladies and gentlemen. We can't. This is one reason why we have massive deficits as well. Poor military leadership. Poor leadership within Congress. With these wars, that's going to go nowhere. And I know I'm going to have veterans that's going to be coming back at me saying, how dare you? I fought there. I lost comrades. I get it. I get it. I was in war in Iraq myself in 2010. But I will tell you this as a military veteran and someone that understands war and planning. You have to have a plan of exit, folks. Rather you win it or you lose it. In a war, you have to have some kind of a plan of exit. Unless you plan on taking over the country or the territory that's being talked about. If you're not going to stay there and occupy it and keep it for your own, you have to have an exit strategy. And there was none. And there has never been one. So I guess the thing that I'm going to pose to any veteran or anyone out there that's going to disagree with my statement here, and I know there's going to be a lot, but I'm speaking with respect and common sense. What was the exit strategy? What did you honestly think the outcome was going to be? It's just like when we went over during the Korean War. You get mixed people saying things about it. What was the strategy there? What was the end result of the conflict? What was it planned to be? It's the same thing with Afghanistan. Okay, so we were going to liberate Afghanistan. Then what? We do what we always do. We pour money into a country, and we just sit there. Folks, that's not a plan. There's no exit strategy. There's no great future for that. Look at communist Russia. They went in there like bulldozers, thinking they were just going to smash through Afghanistan and take it over and clear out all of the issues there. What did they find out? They found out the same thing that the United States found out. Sure, you can kill all these terrorists. You can cut the head off of one snake and another one's going to grow back with 5 more. You can keep a war going. You can beat these people down. They live underground in caves. They're in other surrounding countries and countrysides. You can't bomb all of it. You can't get to all of it. When these terrorists are flowing in and out of the region, and we can't go into the regions that they're coming from, you've got a big disadvantage there. You have a big tactical disadvantage. So again, what was really going to be the outcome of Afghanistan? I think is basically what you're seeing. I think everyone knew that that's what was going to be the outcome. We went over there, spent a bunch of money. It really didn't change anything. And now we're going to leave, and it's going to go right back to hell in a handbasket. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. I'm not going to paint a pretty picture here, folks. That's what it's going to be. That's what's going to happen to that country. And you give it 20 years, and we probably will be back there again. Doing the same exact thing that I'm talking about now. No plan, but we're just going to load money, countless human lives into it. For what? What is the end result? If you think kicking in some doors and blowing up some mountains did anything, it didn't. It didn't. And the bad thing about it is, I look at the lives that were lost over there, and again, I know what families are saying back here in the United States. What did we send our loved ones over there that lost their lives? What did we send them there for? Folks, I'm all for defending this world and this country when it's needed. But again, if you do not have a plan course from start to finish, what good is it? At least in World War I and World War II, especially World War II, we knew what had to be done. We knew what the plan was, and we knew what the outcome needed to be. And that was the goal. The clear goal was to remove Hitler and give the world back. That's a pretty clear picture from start to finish. Now you apply that to Afghanistan. You apply it to Iraq even. What was the point? You toppled these dictators, supposedly, to put in new ones that aren't even there anymore. You didn't follow, we didn't follow through with it. So what's the end result again? I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but was the end result in this? Well, I think the government and the military had no idea. They had no clear picture. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth. Moving to the next topic here. I'm reading this from Politico. It says, why Governor Cuomo is giving himself 14 days to leave office. If everyone has not heard, this made big news here the other day, that Governor Cuomo, with all the sexual assault allegations and things, the New York AG coming down after him, he finally resigned. But he gave himself 2 weeks. And then he was going to resign. You had the AG of New York basically coming down and saying, look, this is not like, a normal job where you got to give notice when you're leaving for 2 weeks. Just resign. You're done. I just kind of thought this was funny. It says New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced his resignation on Thursday, but he is not going anywhere just yet. He gave himself 14 days before his departure from office to become effective. It says the 2 weeks' notice raised some eyebrows among political figures who questioned the motives behind Cuomo's decision. Going through this article, there's a lot of political figures here in New York. The attorney there, Preet Bharara, if I'm pronouncing his name correct, and I apologize if I'm, slaughtering his name here. He said in a tweet, it says Cuomo will leave office, but said that 2 weeks is too long. Well, why would this be any different? Look at his brother and CNN. CNN, they haven't even talked about this. His brother went on a leave of absence, so to speak. They tried flushing him out with some questions to some answers here the other night, and he brushed them off and gave them, pretty negative remarks. But did anybody expect anything different? I'm actually really surprised he resigned. I said from the beginning that if Governor Cuomo decided to resign, they would have to take him out there in handcuffs. And I wouldn't still be surprised if that doesn't happen. I mean, they're forcing him out. I mean, on good reasons, but don't get me wrong. I'm not, saying that he didn't do these things. But again, the This should have been done a long time ago when this first was raised. Looking at some other news. Says the GOP industry signals fight over potential Biden vaccination threat. So, this goes back to what I was saying here last week, ladies and gentlemen. You've got states, most of them blue states. I'm not going to say all of them are blue states, but a majority of them are. What's happening with the Delta variant? Well, that they're reporting that the hospitals are just fluxed with people, flushed with them so badly with the Delta variant that it's overwhelming the system again. So what did the CDC do? Well, even if you're vaccinated, you gotta wear a mask. You got Fauci. If you're a toddler, you gotta wear a mask. Might even need two. CDC rushing around, Dr. Fauci running around, all these so-called experts running around, countering each other day to day. Now you've got them going on about how the vaccinated can be spreaders. We got to start you wearing masks again and social distancing and staying apart from each other. Heck, here in Ohio, I've had people that are getting sick that are friends of mine or acquaintances of people that I know that's been vaccinated. They're getting the COVID-19 again. Or they're getting it for the first time. And we're back to, well, you got to stay home. You got to monitor yourself for 7 to 14 days. We'll pay you while you're home, but you got to stay home. And then you've got all these businesses going, well, you've got to vaccinate these people. You're going to be vaccinated or we're going to let you go. You're fired. So you've got states cracking down saying that you got to have your shot or you're going to lose your job. Speaking of this Politico post that I'm reading, did anyone catch yesterday? It was on all the major outlets about the whole, speaking of the vaccination, about the military coming out and saying by September 15th of this year, all military personnel has to be vaccinated for the COVID-19. Did anybody else see and hear that? Very big write-up, big articles over it. I did. I find that very interesting because, and I read a lot of posts of people talking, countering back and forth with each other. A lot of people fighting, debating this. But does anyone see the fight that's going to be coming with that? What happens if you're a soldier and you feel that you don't want the vaccine? It's your choice, right? And I know people's going to fight this and say, especially some veterans, people that's not been in the military, the armed forces. Well, you're in the military, so you give up that right. Will you give up that right? If someone goes and signs up for the military, or let's say you don't sign up, let's say you're drafted. Let's say we're in a wartime and we need people and we're drafted. Let's just put this scenario in there and you're drafted. I know what people saying, the draft hasn't been around since, we went to war with the Korean War. I understand that. I understand history. I understand when the last time the draft was implemented. But let's just say, just for food for thought here, let's just say there was a draft going on. We had a war that required manpower, and we needed it. Are you going to make all these people that you draft into the United States military or forces, armed forces, are you going to make them get the COVID-19 vaccination against their own will? I had a couple vets that emailed me here the other day, and they were telling me, they said, look, Mr. Nash, some of us served and our veterans. Some of us are still in the military. And we believe when the anthrax shot was made mandatory, if you didn't want it, you didn't have to take it. There were people during the anthrax, when they were pushing the anthrax vaccination. I have been told by people that if they didn't get it, some of them were discharged. So I guess my question is, to any veterans out there, or anybody in general, what are they going to do when they say September 15th, everybody that's in the armed services, you have to have a COVID shot, and you have half of the armed forces say, the hell with you? That's against, rather, our religious beliefs. We don't believe in vaccination. Or you have people say, I don't want to get the vaccinated, it's not FDA approved. Or even if it is FDA approved, why don't you say you have people that say, I don't want it? I don't know what the ramifications in the future are going to be from a vaccine that has had little to no long-term testing for future applications or, diagnostics in the future that might be have a negative outcome to it. What are you going to say to them? Tough luck? I foresee this going in front of the Supreme Court. Now, will they get off their duff and actually do something and actually hear it? I wouldn't know how they would not take that up. Because I think there's going to be a big fight. Here's going to be my 2 cents on that topic. You're going to see a mass exodus from our armed forces. I'm going to go ahead and just put this out there. If I'm wrong, I'll come back and say that I'm wrong. I don't think I'm going to be wrong. I think I know from being a veteran and talking to people on the street or that's in the armed services or has family members or friends in the armed services of any branch. And from what I'm hearing just in the public domain and in our armed forces, folks, there are a lot of people out there, it's in our armed forces, that don't want to get this shot for the reasons that I named off. Now that you're mandating it, what do you think's going to happen? In the military, there is a thing that says you do not have to follow an unlawful order. What do you want to bet? You're going to have a lot of soldiers that's going to say this is an unlawful order. We refuse this. And the next question is, because I've had people say, well, Mr. Nash, what will happen is they'll just discharge them from the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, whatever branch they're in. Okay. Are they going to honorably discharge them? Or are they going to dishonorably discharge them and then smear their private life or any future that they have because they didn't want to get a vaccination? I guess that's my big question to this. It's something to think about. It's a scary thing, folks. I mean, it really is. That's a scary thing. Some other news here. This one is on Politico. I thought it was actually a pretty good piece. It says price growth is winning the race. Inflation is devouring wage gains. Wow. Really? Inflation is devouring people's wage gains. What did you think was going to happen? How many times have I talked about this on here, folks? And I honestly think when I read these articles from these different news outlets, it's like, this is common sense. How did you not expect this to happen? You got all these people in the Biden administration. Well, we're gonna up the minimum wage to $15 or $20 or $25, and people will have more money in their pockets to go out, live lives, and buy more things, and, spread the wealth around. Well, we have inflation that's so high right now. It doesn't matter if you're starting someone out at $20 an hour. You keep raising the price with this inflation that's going on, those wages are just going to disappear. You're going to be back to a person making $20, but by the time they pay for everything that they have to pay for to support themselves or pay their bills, the cost of everything's went up. Let's say they only started off at $14 now. They're going to be right back down to that. Or less. See how I keep saying the same thing with all these taxes that the Biden administration wants to tax on everybody. And everyone's like, oh, there's no extra taxes into that. Yes, there is. These taxes on these big corporations, like I said from the beginning, what do you think they're going to do? Especially now since we have inflation being so high. It costs them more to produce these goods for us. They're just going to mark them up. They ain't paying anymore. We are paying more. We're taxed double or triple again. Come on. It's common economical sense. The last thing that I'm going to talk about here, we're getting back to COVID. I know everyone's tired of hearing me talk about COVID, but I mean, it's just dominating everything in the news. I got this on, this was on USA Today, and it was on the Huffington Post, Yahoo News, countless news outlets. It says Texas, Florida schools flaunt governor's orders on masks. It says the Florida and Texas schools defy governor's ban on mask mandates as COVID sources and cases soar. It says school districts in Florida and Texas are bucking the Republican senators' bans on requiring masks for children and teachers as the coronavirus cases soars in conservative areas with low vaccination rates. Do you see this article? I bring this up for one reason, folks. It's the same thing that I've talked about in my last two podcasts. Does anyone see where they're targeting this? Does anyone see the same two areas that they're targeting day after day after day? Does anyone see where the enemy is here? What did I say? They're going to keep attacking the two biggest states, the two biggest red-held states, Texas and Florida. The last 2 weeks, it's been what? A constant attack on Florida and Governor Ron DeSantis. Now we're back to Texas and Governor Abbott because they have signed in bills basically stating you do not have to wear a mask. There will be no mask mandates. People are going to go back to school. If the teachers do not want to teach, then they'll get rid of them. Or they won't pay their salaries. And we'll get people in there that will work. It's the same thing I've been saying for weeks and months now. We have all these problems at the southern border. People coming in COVID rampant. You hear crickets from this administration and the White House. But yet, who are they attacking? Unvaccinated individuals, American citizens. Saying that they're the problem, they're the spreaders. And then they turn around, and then the CDC turns around and says, but, also, if you have the vaccination, you're a spreader. You can still spread the virus. We got to put all these mandates back on everybody. We got to lock it down. Remember Fauci last week? Well, there will never be no more, lockdown. It won't get that bad, folks. Yes, it is. It's going right back to it. I'm telling everyone, you will not get back to a normalcy ever, with these people in control. This is why we have to start from the ground up, like you're seeing, and work our way up. And I'm telling you now, These individuals in power that's flexing their muscles again, folks, they're scared. We have a 2022 election coming up for a lot of key Senate and House representatives. Their seats and terms are up. They know a majority of them are out the damn door. Why wouldn't they still continue to try to stick it to people? I just find it ridiculous every day that we have all these problems flowing into this country with COVID, but yet, and we can't shut the door to it, but yet they're attacking the people that's not vaccinated or that's had the COVID-19, have the antibodies for it, are better immune to it than people with that's being vaccinated, and they're still attacking those individuals. It's crazy. We live in an upside down world now, thanks to the far left. Well, folks, I have been on for more than an hour here. We have covered a lot of range of topics here today. I wanted to get back on and talk to everybody, cover some things today. Again, I'm going to wrap up my podcast here today. Like always, I tell everyone in my audience, leave a comment. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Rumble. We are on Spotify. We are on Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. If you can't watch a video, or if the camera is the ditto cam is down and I can't post something, listen to my voice on the radio. It's there. It's always going to be there. I'll go ahead and say, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I am back on YouTube. I got their apology letter. So we'll see how far that lasts, or how long I stay on with YouTube. But apparently I'm back on YouTube. So again, if you'd like to bring up a topic, if you have something you'd like to discuss with me, drop me a line. Send us a message. I'm on Facebook as well. You can't miss it. Political Theater with Charles Nash. You can look me up, Charles Nash, here for Marion, Ohio, where I live. But like I said, this will be another episode of Political Theater with your host, me, Charles Nash. I hope everyone has a great week, and I will catch you later on, folks. Thank you, and have a great day.